Hello and welcome to Beyond Visual. I'm Fred Williams with Level 3 Associates, and I'm here today to bring you a program that is dedicated to the exposure and the education in the NDT industry and its impact on our everyday lives. So throughout the continued airing of this program, our goal is to expose and educate you, our audience, about the interesting and exciting field of non-destructive testing. Today's guest joining me today is Jarrus Mitchell of the NDT Institute in Charlotte, North Carolina, where he's the director of that institute, where they teach young, aspiring people about non-destructive testing in our industry. So welcome to the show, Jarrus.
Hey, appreciate it, Fred. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so I am the founder of ND Institute, and we've been established since 2014. And our passion truly is educating young men and women in the NDT industry. We've seen them come and go, right? We've seen them grow a lot here in the past couple of years. Taking people with very little educational background and giving them a vocational skill and turning their life around. So we're excited about that.
That's great. That's great. Well, for our audience members who don't know, I kind of want to backtrack a little bit and kind of give them an explanation of what NDT is.
Exactly.
It's an industry you and I have both been involved in for several decades. And so for our audience members who may not be familiar with it, non-destructive testing, or NDT as we call it, is an inspection method that's used in manufacturing, construction, energy, aerospace, numerous industries to inspect and evaluate different products and parts and materials, to evaluate the integrity of those materials, because people don't want to have flaws in their final products where it can pose a danger to the public. So just to give you, our audience, an idea, that's what Jarrus and I do. So Jarrus, if you don't mind, can you kind of, give us a brief explanation of how you yourself got involved in NDT?
Yeah, so I got involved in NDT, and it's famous, how people get into NDT. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But I got into it doing what they call special inspections, soil testing for engineering firms and things like that. So I saw some guys, with a little monitor, and they're scrubbing the steel, and I'm like, "What's going on, guys? Like, what's this about?" And they was like, "Man, this is ultrasonic testing," and I'm like, "What do you mean ultrasonic testing?" And so I'm thinking the hospital, but you're using it on steel. So I got involved with those guys from that company, and the rest is history, honestly. Like, I dived into ultrasound, I dived into radiography, and just didn't come up for breath till like 5 or 10 years later. And and it's a whole world out here,
Right.
with NDT, man. And I was shocked because, when you're younger, you're trying to earn as much as you can earn, right? And so the pay scale was so dramatically different from level to level.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I was hooked,
Another motivational factor for getting into NDT.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, me, myself, I've been in NDT, I'm going to tell on myself a little bit, almost 40 years. I know I don't look that way, but yeah, it is true. Almost 40 years. And I have a similar story to that as well. And I've heard those stories, throughout my career. It seems as though a lot of people are exposed to non-destructive testing almost by accident. They either see it occurring in their everyday line of work and they're not familiar with it. And so they get curious about it and then start to acquire about it. So it sounds like that's what happened to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you've made the transition from actually doing I should say the actual field work, the technician work, to now you've transitioned to the educational side with the founding of the NDE Institute up in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if you could tell us a little bit about, what you guys are doing up there with the students at the NDE Institute, please.
Okay, so I gotta admit, like you say, roll it back a little bit. I gotta admit, when we first met, I had started the school, and it was in motion, but I hadn't really put my foot down, like really committed to it.
Yes.
And, I was in awe of another person that looked like me and had a full scale service NDT company like yourself. And so I felt like, okay, wow, I can get in the educational niche and grind right there and really develop myself in that. And that's kind of like how I grew the school.
Mhm.
But what we, what like I said, what we do, we'll take a guy off of Main Street and introduce him to NDT and slow walk him 7-month program, roughly $6,500, and get him from a level one, give him a level 1 and level 2 theory, NDT theory information, and then do our level best to hook him up or get him acclimated in industry through resources that we have, like yourself or other companies. Um, and so that's what we've done for years. And guys and ladies have grown tremendously just with that. You know.
Okay, so you kind of touched on something that I wanted to address. So, which are you teaching all of the inspection methods of non-destructive testing? Because we do know that there are several methods of performing these tests to evaluate your customers and clients' products. So, what methods of testing are you
Exactly.
teaching?
Yeah. So we're doing radiography, ultrasound, we're doing visual testing, magnetic particle testing, liquid penetrant testing, and here coming soon we're going to start with electromagnetic testing. ET. We're adding that to the curriculum in the very near future. So that's what we're doing, and we've grown pretty good at it.
Okay, so um, so for the students or a person who may be interested in exploring NDT, I'm sure one of the questions that they have on their mind is, after graduation, how is the placement? Because for me, I remember I used to be recruited to go to school, and I don't want to go to school and study and graduate, and then there's no employment available for me. So, do you see that there's a continued and future need for younger people in the NDT industry, and are you guys able to place them in the industry?
Yeah, yeah. So I gotta admit, there's a sweet spot, right? So we call it in our field, what you're aware of, the utility and power sector, or the shutdown or the outages of utility companies and power companies that need routine maintenance yearly. So with those routine maintenance of these power plants, they're constantly looking for entry level, young people to travel and do these outages. And these outages are anywhere from 15 to 45 days. And so that's kind of like a sweet spot in terms of placing individuals. However, we do have some relationships. One main one is a Spirit Rail up
Mhm.
in Connecticut. Um, we were doing, we send quite a few people to them.
Mhm.
Uh, and right now our placement rate is roughly around 96%. So
Wow.
we're pretty good in placing people when they enroll. But hey, Fred, you know as well as I do, you get in, you get out what you put in.
Right.
So
I
those
agree.
individuals that are engaged, they generally do better than those that are not engaged.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, now I want to speak a little bit to the demographic, um, and kind of relate on my own personal experience. Like I said, I've been in NDT almost 40 years now. I got my original start in the United States Air Force, was my first exposure to non-destructive testing. And I've been doing this one single thing my entire professional life. But during the course of this, I did not see, especially in those early days, in my early years, I did not see a lot of minority participation in the non-destructive testing field. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact of a lot of people just is not familiar with what NDT, because you know as well as I do, is when you tell someone what you do, the next question out of their mouth is, what is that?
right.
Okay? So I attribute a lot of that to the lack of minority participation, Black and brown people in the non-destructive testing industry. So are you looking to include more minority participation as well as women as well too? Because I used to work with quite a few women when I was in the Air Force, but it wasn't that so much that way when I transitioned into the civilian world. So I wanted to know if you guys are addressing that in the educational industry as well
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I gotta admit that we are heavily engaged in that in recruiting African Americans into the industry, and as well as people of brown color and women, because of the fact that NDT is not found on Main Street. So we have to get it to Main Street. So that's one thing that we have championed is getting it on Main Street. And to be honest with you, carpentry, welding, automotive, these type vocational trades have long been out there. But when they hear about NDT, it's an automatic, excitement, so yeah.
Okay. All right, Jarrus. I think I probably want to close on one final question, and that would be, why should a person decide to choose a career in NDT?
I would say, and just briefly, it is the fastest way to change your economic structure of your family or yourself the quickest of any career that I know of.
Yeah.
That'd be the main thing.
Okay. Well, I've come to find it, for me personally, that it's always been a challenging field because of the methods of testing that we use. We use ultrasonic testing, we use radiographic testing, and a lot of our technology comes out of the medical industry, particularly the ultrasound and the X-ray. And often when I used to teach classes, I used to try to relate it to people as with ultrasonic testing, are you a fisherman? And some guys would say, yes. Do you have a fish finder on your boat? They say, yes. Well, that's ultrasonic testing.
Right.
With a transducer in the water, and you see the fish on the screen. We're not looking for fish. We're looking for defects. So, same technology, but just different. In radiography, we're not X-raying flesh and bones. We're going through much more dense material, so we have to use a higher level of energy of radiography. So with that being said, the field is challenging, it's stimulating, it makes you think, it's not repetitive, because there's several things that have to take place in order to produce the desired results.
Right.
So, okay, well, Jarrus, I wanted to, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, for sure.
I was happy that you and I were able to connect and do this interview. So I thank you for spending a part of your day with us and taking time out and explaining to the audience about the educational side of NDT. And if you don't mind, if someone's interested in getting more information from you or contacting you, how can they do that?
They can contact us at our website, www.ndeinstitute.com. Or you can contact us at info@ndeinstitute.com via email or via phone, 607-296-9600.
All right. Well, thanks again, Jarrus. And I want to say thank you to all our guests for tuning in. That's all we have for today. And we look forward to seeing you again on our next episode of Beyond Visual.